This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Yeah. Supposedly there are a lot of people watching this. That's what they say. I have no idea if it's true or not.
Why?
That's what they tell every rabbi. There are a lot of people watching him. They make him feel good.
I watched you.
What?
I saw you.
Yeah, right?
I saw you live. It's not better than to see a real life. Real time. Alive and alive. There's a difference between real time and live or alive.
Is the air conditioner on? Usher, put it on your temperature. Okay, there we go. Okay, first we want to thank Meir for manning the live stream, as always. Thank you very much. Okay, so the closing moments of Tisha B'Av. I want to read to you a Tanad Ve'Eliyahu, Parak Daled. Will give us added appreciation for what we're able to accomplish today by mourning over the Churban Beis HaMikdash. Tanad Ve'Eliyahu says, V'chein kol chacham v'chacham miYisrael, every wise man, sheyesh by divrei Torah, who has Torah la'amitai, to its truth. In other words, a true Talmid Chacham, someone who really knows Torah. So none of us are claiming to fit that category, but if one would be able to be under that category, u'misaneach al kvodo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he moans for the honor of Hashem, v'al kvodon shel Yisrael kol yamam, and for the honor of Klal Yisrael, u'mechamed, and he desires, u'misaveh, and he has a taiva, he has a yearning, u'mitzapeh, and he looks forward, al kvod Yerushalayim, for the restoration of the honor of Yerushalayim, v'al Beis HaMikdash, and for the honor of the Beis HaMikdash, v'al ha'yeshua shetatzmiach b'karov, and for the salvation to come quickly, v'al kinos galios, and for the exiles to gather in, miyad shoyra ruach hakodesh b'kerbay. Immediately, a divine spirit rests on him, shenemar, like the pasuk says in Yeshaya, aye hasam b'kerbay es ruach kachay. Aye, one who says, aye, where is God already? Where is the Beis HaMikdash already? Why aren't Klal Yisrael being ingathered? Then Hasam b'kirbay es ruach kachay, Rebbe Shem puts a spirit in him. In other words, we're talking about a true Talmid Chacham, but nevertheless, even if someone is a true Talmid Chacham, they may not yet be on this madrega where they are yearning for the kavod of Hashem. Why not? Maybe they're yearning for their own kavod, right? Maybe they're yearning to understand Torah more, to be marbitz Torah more, to proliferate Torah. They're not yet holding on the level where they're interested in the honor of God. They might be interested in other things. The story goes about the Bach. Bach, his name was Rav Yoel Circus. He lived in the city of Krakow, right? The Bach lived in the city of Krakow, and he wrote his commentary on the Torah, but he was not being successful in publishing it. For some reason, things were not going well for him, and he had a lot of stumbling blocks, and it just didn't happen. It wasn't working out. And one night, he was really upset. Nothing's working out. There's so many Talmidei Chacham, they're publishing. There's so many. I can't publish my Sfar. And then he says to himself, "Why am I so worried about my own success in publishing the Bach? You know what? There are worse things in this world. Like there's no Beis HaMikdash, and Klal Yisrael is in Golos, and the honor of Hashem is defiled in the world." And he sat down for the first time in a long time. He said Tikkun Chatzos, and he mourned the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, and he fell asleep, and he had a dream. And the Rebbe Shem came to him in a dream, and he said, "You should know that for many years we were displeased with you." This is the Bach, one of the greatest on the Torah. Because you were so involved in your learning, you neglected saying mourning over Yerushalayim. But now, for the first time, you were interested in the honor of Hashem and the honor of Yerushalayim, the honor of Beis HaMikdash, and supposedly from there on, the Bach was able then to publish his Sfarim. So, what the Tanad Ve'Eliyahu is telling us is that even someone who is very well versed and very knowledgeable in Torah, nevertheless, it is critical that a person should try to have a higher kavanah, and the higher kavanah is to yearn for the restoration of the honor of Hashem in the world, the honor of Yerushalayim, the honor of the Beis HaMikdash. So I want to read to you what the Ramchal, what the Mesilas Yesharim says about this Tana D'Eliyahu. I happen to very much love the Sefer Mesilas Yesharim. Probably of all the Svarim I ever learned, it's the one that had the most biggest Rosh Amami. And Vilna Gaon is reputed to have said that he read the first 11 chapters and there's not one extra word in the Mesilas Yesharim. So anytime you learn now, this isn't Parak Yotes. Doesn't mean the Vilna Gaon felt that after Parak Yod Aleph there are extra words. Actually, I once heard in the name of Rav Shach that the reason why the Vilna Gaon only set up to Parak Yod Aleph is because the Vilna Gaon argued with the Ramchal as to the right Gersa and the Brisa of Pinchas ben Yair. Pinchas ben Yair says Torah brings to Zehiros, to Zrizos, to Nekios, to Prishos, to Tahara, Chasidus. The Gra had an argument in an exact Gersa. So from Parak Yod Aleph and on, he had a different Gersa, so he wasn't commenting beyond that. But certainly every word in the Mesilas Yesharim is measured, and if you find an extra word, you're entitled to try to explain what is the Kavanah of the Ramchal. Okay. So the first Ramchal begins by quoting the Tana D'Eliyahu, and if you notice, he has a different Gersa of the Tana D'Eliyahu, basically the same thing, but says the Ramchal, this is Parak Yotes, Beveyor Chalkei HaChasidus. This is on a very, very high level. So for all of us here, I could see on your faces you're on a very high level after the Tainus. And says Ramchal, B'davar zeh be'aru b'Tana D'Eliyahu zachor latay. Amru, Kol chacham Yisrael, sheyesh bo dvar Torah la'amitai. Any Torah sage that has true knowledge of Torah, u'misaneach al kvodo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he groans for the honor of God, the al kvodo shel Yisrael, in the honor of the Jewish people, kol yamav, u'misaveh u'meitzer l'chvod Yerushalayim. He has pain for the honor of Yerushalayim, l'chvod Beis HaMikdash, l'Yeshua shetitzmach b'karov, zoiche l'ruach HaKodesh b'dvarav. He will merit to have Ruach HaKodesh in his words. A little differently than our Gerson Tana D'Eliyahu. Our Gerson Tana D'Eliyahu, it says, Miyad shoira Ruach HaKodesh b'kirboy. The Ramchal's Gerson is, Zoiche l'Ruach HaKodesh b'dvarav. Says Ramchal, what do we see from here? Nimtzeisa lamed, shezois hi hakavana hameula. This is the highest kavana. In other words, when you're doing a mitzvah, right? You put on tefillin, you put on a talis. So the first kavana you have is, you want to be mekayim in the mitzvah of talis, you want to be mekayim in the mitzvah of tefillin. What is the highest kavana? What's the ideal kavana? Connected to Hashem. Maybe you're not doing it for ulterior motives, you're not doing it for kavah, you're not doing it for any other motive other than to serve Hashem. But says Ramchal, what we learn from here is, the highest level of doing a mitzvah is to do a mitzvah in order to bring the honor of Hashem higher, in order to do it solely for the sake of heaven. In other words, to be Mekadesh Shem Hashem, to be Magdil, the covet of Hashem. So this is the highest level. Shehi rechoika legamri mikol anos atzmai. It is completely distant from any personal kavana. Ve'eno elo lechvoido shel makom. It's only for the honor of God. Ulekidush shema yisbarach hamiskadesh b'vriyosav b'sha sha'osim ratzaynai. That surprisingly, astonishingly, you would think God is unaffected when we do a mitzvah. Well, what does God care if we do a mitzvah? No. There's a concept that Rebbe Hashem allows himself to be elevated when we do a mitzvah. The highest level of doing a mitzvah, tomorrow morning you put on your tefillin, the highest form of putting on tefillin, I'm putting on my tefillin to sanctify Hashem. Not for me in Olam Hazeh, not because I want to make money today, not for me in Olam Haba, not because I want to have the greatest kavana of doing any mitzvah is to be Mekadesh Hashem's name, to elevate the sanctity of Hashem. Next paragraph. A righteous man like this, the main thing I want to focus on is the paragraph after this. Besides the fact that whenever he does a mitzvah, he should have this kavanah in mind, he should always be pained about the galus. Now, we spent the whole day here fasting. Yeah, I know, nobody ate. But did any of us really, really, really feel bad that we're in Galus? Yeah. So some people say yeah. Anybody else venturing to be... Did anyone really feel bad? V'ala chorban. Well, says Ramchal, if you happen to really feel bad about it today, really you should feel like this the whole year. Why? What's so bad about being in Galus? Says Ramchal, mitzad ma shezeh goyre miyod kviyachal chvad yisbarach. The worst part of Galus is not because of what goyim do to us, or not because of anything other than the fact that the honor of the Rebbeinu Shalom is diminished. V'yisaveh legeula, and a person should have a taiva, a person should have a desire for the geula. Like the way you feel about food right now, you have a taiva, you should have a taiva that the geula should come. Why? Lefi sheba yiyah iloi lechvoid shema yisbach. The reason we want the geula is not for us. It's not for us. Actually, the Gemara says geula is not good for us. There's a pasuk in Koheles that the Zman Mashiach is called Yomim Asher Ein Bohem Chayfetz, days that we don't want. Why don't we want it? Because once Mashiach comes, the Bechira is limited. When you do a mitzvah, your reward will be limited because of course, when Mashiach comes, everyone's going to jump on the bandwagon, right? Like when your favorite team wins the championship, all of a sudden everyone roots for that team, right? So Mashiach comes and everyone's going to want to do mitzvahs, and mitzvahs are not going to have the same reward. And the Gemara says, really, the Yemais HaMashiach are Yomim Asher Ein Bohem Chayfetz. Elamai, why do we daven for Mashiach? The answer is, it's not for us. It's like the Mesilas Yesharim says, Lefi Sheba Yiyah Iloi Lechvoid Shema Yisbarach, because it's good for the Rebbeinu Shalom. Okay, let's see the next paragraph. This is what I want to focus on. Okay, this next paragraph is a little bit of a mystery. V'im yoymar adam, and if a person says, Mi ani, who am I? Uma ani safon, what am I worth? She'espalel ala golos v'al Yerushalayim, that I should daven for the golos. Who am I that I should daven for the golos? Imagine I told you, do me a favor, go to Washington and tell the president what you think he should do with foreign relations. It's like, come on, who am I that I should? What am I worth? Who am I? And then the Mesilas Yesharim says another question. Hamipnei tfilasi. You think because I daven, yechunsu agolios, the exiles will be ingathered, v'titzmach hayeshua, and the salvation will come. You think really because I said as semach David Abdecha Mashiach will come? Do you really think so? So these are the questions of the Mesilas Yesharim. Who am I to daven for Mashiach? And number two, you think my davening is going to make a difference? Mesilas Yesharim seems to give two answers that contradict each other. Tshuvasai b'tzidai. The answer is immediate. Ka'oisa sheshaninu, like that which we learned. Lefikach nivra adam yechidi. When Rebbeinu created the world, He created it with many elephants, and many lions, and many tigers, and many fish, and many birds, but one man. Why did God create the world with one man? Kedei shekol echad yoymar, so that everyone should say, B'shvili nivra ha'olam. The world was created because of me. In other words, you had a question, who are you to daven Mashiach? I'll tell you who you are. The whole world was made for you. You are the most important person in the history of the world. That's who you are. Sounds like we're very important. Sounds like we can make a difference. And then the Mesilas Yesharim says, you know what? It brings God nachas, that His children should daven for this. Even if He's not going to listen to them, because the time has not come. For whatever other reason, they did their part. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is happy about it. What does that seem to be saying? The question was, do you really think your tefillah is going to bring Mashiach? And what's the answer? Ramchal says, you're right, it's not. But it makes God happy anyway. Because He likes it. He gets nachas from the fact that His children are davening for the right things. So, It seems like the Ramchal is contradicting himself. First he says, you know who you are. The whole world was created for you. God created everything in this world just for you. He made the United States of America. He made Canada. He even made Mexico for you. He made Europe for you. He made Switzerland for you. He made the North Pole for you. Everything was made for you. And therefore, don't say who am I? Who are you? Everything's for you. And the second answer is, you're right. Nothing you do, Rabbi Shalom's not going to listen to you anyway, but it makes him happy, so do it. So the question is, could you do it or you cannot do it? Why is the Ramchal contradicting himself? He had a question, why daven? Who am I? So first he says, who are you? You're the most important person in the world. And the second answer is, you're right. Nothing you do will matter anyway, but it makes God happy. So you have to know in general, when it comes to Ramchal, now I'm embarrassed to tell you where I thought of this pshat. It was many, many years ago. I was not in a base medrash at the time. But this is the pshat in the Ramchal. Okay? You have to read every word of the Ramchal very carefully. The Ramchal is never repetitive. So when he says, Mi ani, who am I? Shespalal ala golos, I should daven for the golos val Yushalayim. And then he says, Hamipnei tfilasi, you think because of my tefillah, Mashiach will come? He's not just reiterating, he's not a speaker. You know, a speaker will say a question, and he'll say it like 5 times, but he could have just said it once. So why does he say it 5 times? Sometimes you're searching for the right word. No, the Ramchal is not speaking. Every word of the Ramchal is calculated. If he repeats the question, it's because he's not repeating. He's asking 2 questions. There are 2 questions here in the Ramchal. Question number 1 is, who am I to daven for Mashiach? Me? What's my value? Davening for Mashiach maybe is something for the Gadol Hadar, for the Tzaddik Hadar, for someone on a very high level. But who am I to daven for Mashiach? That is question number 1. Question number 2 is not who am I. Question number 2 is, will my tefillah make a difference? Will my tefillah bring Mashiach? There are 2 separate questions. One is, in order to ask for something, you have to be worthy to make the request. And number 2 is, even if I am worthy, but will God make a difference? Will God change it? Will God bring Mashiach? And the Mesilas Yesharim is now, in his answer, applying the great rule of whenever you ask questions, you answer ala rishon ve'ala achrein achrein. Whenever you have questions, you answer the first question first. A chacham, when a chacham says over questions, he says question number 1, question number 2, he then answers question number 1, and then answers question number 2. So what's question number 1? Question number 1 is, who am I to daven for Mashiach? Am I worthy to daven for Mashiach? The answer is yes. Ding, ding, ding. Absolutely. There is no one more worthy than you. Why? Because the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, it's a Mishnah, Lefikach nivra adam yechidi. Why was man created by himself? Kedei shekal echad yoimar b'shvili nivra ha'olam. So that every individual should say, the world was created for me. So let nobody think that they are unworthy to daven for Mashiach, because every person is the most worthy individual in the history of planet Earth. If you are alive, if God created you, that means He would have created 6,000 years of history just for you. So let nobody make the mistake and think, who am I? Who are you? You are as good as it gets. You're top stuff. You're Mitsuyan. You know, they say every boy is the biggest Mitsuyan in Lakewood. It's true. Right? Every human being. Okay, so that's question number 1. Who am I? B'shvili nivra olam. Now question number 2 is, will my tefillah bring Mashiach? That's irrespective. That's regardless of your particular level. Even if you're a big tzaddik. Will my tefillah bring Mashiach? The answer is nobody knows. It's not necessarily up to me, it's not up to you. When the Rebbe Shalom wants to bring Mashiach, when the time comes, He'll bring it. So then why should I daven for it? The answer is, you're not necessarily davening for it because your tefillah is going to make it or break it. You're davening for it because it brings the Ribbon Shalom nachas ruach, that his children are davening for not a good Danish after the fast, and not for their favorite team to win the World Series, and not for other things that people daven for. That Klal Yisrael is davening for Mashiach Tzidkenu, for Haramas Karen Yisrael, for Haramas Karen HaTorah, for Kiddush Shem Shamayim. So I believe that this paragraph in the Mesilas Yesharim, you could take it home, you could think about it. The Mesilas Yesharim is asking two questions, and he's addressing each question separately. Question number one is, who am I? Question number two is, will it make a difference? The answer to question number one is, Bishvilcha Nivra Ha'olam, and the answer to question two is, whether it makes a difference or not, that is our obligation, that is what we have to do. Okay, so let us forge ahead. The Al Heder Zeh Hadavar Hisraim Hanavi. Because there's such a lack of people really yearning for the Geula, the Navi gives out a cry. Vayar Kienish. The Rebbe Shalom looks and there is no man. Vayishtoimim, and the Rebbe Shalom is astonished. Kien Mafkia. There is no one davening for this. Nobody davens. Everybody davens. Rifainu, everybody has kavana. And Barech Aleinu for Parnasa, everyone has kavana. And some people might even have kavana for Atachoinen. Rebbe Shalom put into my mind to buy the right stocks. Atachoinen liyadam das. But does anybody have in mind real kavana for V'Yushalayim Mircha? Does anyone have kavana for a Semach David? Well, the Navi says it's very rare. It's very rare. And the Navi Yirmiyah says, Tzion hi, doiresh ein la. It is Tzion, nobody seeks her out. Ufershu zechroinim levracha. Chazal and Gemara and Sukkah learn from here, Meklal deboy drisha, which means from you have to seek it out. You got to seek it out. So if you're
spiritual or physical?
You have to daven for it. You have to want it. You have to have tsar. Yeah.
Don't live there. Just spiritual.
If you could live there, go ahead. Says Ramchal, Harei kan shechayovim anachnu bazeh. We're obligated on this. Ve'ein lanu lipater mibnei mir koichenu. Which means like this. The fact that your particular yearning and your particular tefillah may not bring it, may not bring the gula, doesn't matter. You always have to seek it out. You always have to desire it. You always have to be mitzapeh. And on such things, Chazal say, Lo yalecha hamlacha ligmar, v'iyata ben chayrim libato imena. You don't have to finish the job. No individual Jew has the personal responsibility on his shoulders that he has to bring Mashiach. I have to bring Mashiach. Nobody has to do it. But you can't free yourself. Everyone has to yearn. Everyone has to feel the pain. And if you're walking down the street and you have nothing better to think about, and you say, Ribono shel olam, why don't you bring the Geula already? We're waiting for it. You're yearning. We're yearning for it. You're already head and shoulders above everybody else. It says in Mesilas Yesharim, a few lines down. V'yamar, this is this week's Haftarah. Kol habasar chatzir. All the flesh, they're like grass. The chalchatzta chastoi kitzitz hasada, and all their kindness is like the herbs of the field. In other words, Rebbe Shalom is saying, all your mitzvahs, what is it worth to me? What do you mean, what is it worth? Mitzvahs are very valuable. Why is Rebbe Shalom criticizing our performance of mitzvahs? Says the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, Shekol chesed sha'oisim la'atzmam hemoisim. Because the mitzvahs that we do for ourselves. What do you mean we do for ourselves? L'toivas nafsham. We do it for our own nefesh. We want to have a big chelek in Olam Haba. We want to bask in the glory of the Shekhinah. But says in Mesilas Yesharim, the Rebbe Shalom saying, but there's something lacking in that. The highest level of performing a mitzvah is to be mechavein, to do a mitzvah, to be magdil, the kedusha of the Rebbe Shalom. To be magdil, to magnify God's presence in this world. To uphold and raise up the honor of the Jewish people. And we don't have kavana on the higher level. We don't request God's kavod to be magnified. Ugulasam shel Yisrael, and the redemption of the Jewish people. So, if you want to really elevate your performance of mitzvahs, all you need to do is a very simple thing. Whenever you do a mitzvah, besides being mechavin to do the mitzvah, you should have kavana that you're doing the mitzvah to be maleh the kavod of the Rebbeinu Shalom in this world. And if you do that, you're on a very high level. And if together with that, not only are you mechamed, umesaveh, umetzapeh for the kavod Hashem, but as the Tanna B'Eliyah says, if you also are a Talmid Chacham, and now you have the dynamic duo, then not only do you have Torah, but you're also mesaveh for the kavod Hashem, then says Tanna B'Eliyah, immediately the Ruach HaKodesh will be shayra on a person. Okay, we have a few moments left. Let's just... so we say this, I think, every year at Tisha B'Av. We know that the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of sinas chinam, because of baseless hatred, weren't showing each other proper kavod. So it would seem quite odd then that on Tisha B'Av, what do you do when you're walking down the street and you see someone? You bury your face and you don't say anything to them. And what do you do when you see your friend in shul? You ignore them. And what do you do when you come to your seat? You look the other way. You don't say a word to your friend. You don't say hello. You don't say good morning. You don't say how you doing. You don't say have a great day. There's no she'ela shalom on Tisha B'Av. Wow, what a very nice way to correct sinas chinam, right? What a wonderful way. So now, just in case you had someone in the shul who you didn't hate, now you can be sure that you've now made enemies with everybody. And what do you do if somebody says hello to you? You ignore them. And what if they're not going to understand? So then the halacha says you mumble something. You mumble something. Yeah, you don't want to insult them, but you don't. So what's going on? Aren't we supposed to be correcting sinas chinam? So we have all these computers in front of us and all this electronic equipment. I don't even know what it is. But one thing I know about computers is that, especially the one in the office, when it freezes, which is not an uncommon occurrence, what do you do when a computer stops working?
Restart.
Reboot. You turn it off and you start it again and you hope for the best. It's with any electronic equipment. When I was a kid, you had these these games. So all of a sudden, it's not working, and what do? You turn it off, and even better, you take out the battery. That's the magic trick, right? Mm-hmm. Taking out the battery, and sometimes it works. Your phone, it's not working, what do? You take out the battery. Somehow, when you start things up again, the second time around, you could hope for the best. So I once heard, I think in the name of Rav Druk, that when it comes to Tisha B'Av, we're trying to correct our interpersonal relationships and our kavod habriyos and so forth. Sometimes we have to reboot. Tisha B'Av, we turn everything off. I don't look at you. I don't say a word to you. I don't say hello. I don't say good morning. I don't say how you doing. I don't greet you. Hopefully, we had a day to think about how we need to elevate our interpersonal behavior. And Mirz Hashem, tomorrow morning, I will try to greet you and say good morning, and hopefully all of us will elevate our Bein Adam HaChaveroi, and we should be Zoicha to the Binyan Beis HaMikdash B'mheira B'yameinu Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.